Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, and my guest this week is someone I'm extremely excited to talk to. Person that makes it really, really cool to do the friends clap every Stride Pro Wrestling show. One half of the Wrestling Buddies, Dalton Anthony. Dalton, thank you so much for doing the show.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. I've listened to a couple of, whenever you contacted me, I got to listen to the Heath Hatton and my tag partner Jay Spade's episode. So I've been kind of like, I didn't want to reach out, but I wanted to reach out. So I'm happy that you sent me the text when you did, because I was like, oh, I like talking to people.
Well, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. But my first question for you is the same question that was for both of them. Were you a wrestling fan growing up? And if so, what were some of the wrestlers that you enjoyed watching?
I definitely was. I was born in 1992, so grew up in that really prime attitude. We forget the invasion angle into the ruthless aggression.
Right.
My favorite wrestler of all time, it's the same whenever I talk to anybody, it's X-Pac.
Really?
Yeah, I remember. So again, this was the 1990s, so show some grace to my mom. But she was a bartender because my dad was a truck driver, needed money, so my mom was a bartender, and there wasn't babysitters just abundant everywhere. So there was multiple nights, mainly Mondays, that I remember just sitting at the edge of the bar while mom was working, and she would put something on to keep me distracted so I wouldn't try to play with the pool table. And it was always Monday Night Raw, and I think my earliest memory of watching wrestling was an X-Pac match. I can't remember who he was facing, but he's like the first memory of wrestling was X-Pac. I'm sure I watched it before, but that was he's the first, whenever I think wrestler, it's X-Pac, 'cause that was the first one that I ever saw, and he's been my favorite of all time. I love Mick Foley,
Okay.
any era that he did. About to say a lot of those, how should I say it without, this doesn't apply to X-Pac, but the guys that didn't look athletic but were able to captivate you and make everything look believable were my favorite kind. So like I loved Mankind, Terry Funk, amazing. A lot of the hardcore guys, even though I do not wrestle that style, those are the guys that I watch all the time, and I'm like, yeah, those guys figured it out. Tommy Dreamer's another one of them, where I'm like, yeah, that guy is a badass, basically. But yeah, no, those were a lot of the guys that I really liked watching. I guess Dreamer was a little bit more into that mid-2000s era, but
Right.
growing up, it was a lot of Mankind. It was the big Attitude Era names. I remember Stone Cold. I was one of the kids that got in trouble in kindergarten for wearing a D-Generation X shirt. Like, it didn't say "suck it" on it, but my teacher was not happy. Yeah, no, I was one of those kids though, growing up in wrestling.
It's funny you mentioned X-Pac. Do you feel there's a more underappreciated wrestler out there than X-Pac? 'Cause I mean, like, he was such a great wrestler, and he was, really kind of brought a lot of different things to the forefront, and as far as, his style and guys his size being able to really work in the United States. But yet, you know, whenever you mention all these innovators, I mean, of course they mention, your Rey Mysterios, your Shawn Michaels, etc. But, they don't really bring up, Kid or X-Pac. You think he's underappreciated, or?
If you were to ask me who is a little bit more underappreciated than X-Pac, I say Jerry Lynn.
Also, gotta love Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, I interviewed him one time for the podcast that I'm on, and it took a lot to me not to ask about X-Pac a whole lot because we were interviewing him and not X-Pac.
Right.
But those two have killed it so many times together in matches that I'm like, I need to ask just because that's who I am as a person.
Right.
But yeah, no, those two I watch, and again, Jerry Lynn's one of those people that I watch a whole lot. Again, somebody that I can't really wrestle that style, but I appreciate. But yeah, those two, if you're just looking at smaller, quote unquote, smaller guys that never got the chances that we see now with wrestlers, like those two, both of those guys are 20 years ahead of their time, if you ask me.
Absolutely. And Jerry Lynn, I mean, I never got to interview him for a podcast or anything, but is there a nicer guy than Jerry Lynn in the wrestling business?
There isn't. You're absolutely right. The only maybe Dan Severn. I interviewed him before, and he was also a super stand-up guy. Those two guys are like the nicest humans that I think I've ever met. And Glacier. All right, so it's three. I have a Mount Rushmore more sweethearts in wrestling, and it's Dan Severn, Glacier, and Jerry Lynn.
Okay, I've met Jay Lynn and Dan Severn. I've not had the honor of meeting Glacier yet, which I regret because he was doing pictures in costume all in weekend. I didn't do it, and I regret it to this day.
I tagged with him in 2019, I think. I was in a match with him. It was me and Billy Hills in Glacier were in a match. And I was brand new to wrestling. I think I may have been wrestling for I've been training for over a year at that point, but I think I had just started doing matches maybe 5, 6 months. And so everybody was kind of working around me, and I called a spot and I messed it up. And I remember it was like the first time in wrestling where I felt my stomach sink.
Oh no!
I was supposed to roll through something and I bumped instead, and it was like my opening spot. So it was the spot that everybody was starting to understand that I do. If you've ever watched me, it's that roll through into the front drop kick into the corner.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, if you've ever watched me, if you've watched a wrestling, if you've watched a Dalton Anthony match at Stride, you've seen this exact spot 100 times. And I had just started doing it. I think I maybe done it a time or two before, and I went to roll, and my brain told me to bump for some reason, and I bumped. The clothesline didn't connect, obviously, because I bumped before the line got there. So I got up really quick, didn't know what to do. My opponent grabbed me, and then we were doing it for Fight TV, but we were editing it at the time. We weren't going live like we do now at CCW.
Right.
So he was like, we're just going to do the spot again. I do the spot correctly the second time because I was not going to mess it up again. I instantly tag out to Billy Hills, and I feel like I am the smallest human being in the world. And Glacier pats me on the back and says, "Good job, baby. You kept your feet moving, made him forget it." And Dalton Anthony went out the window at that exact moment. He very much dealt with actual me, and I said, "You don't know how much I appreciated that." Wrestling match is going on. I had to tell him how much I appreciated him not yelling at me for that in the moment.
Nice. That is. I like hearing those stories. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But all right, so we've established that you're a wrestling fan. Were you always thinking that you wanted to be a wrestler? Or was it kind of like just, wrestling's neat, but I'm not gonna do that? Did you have any other goals in mind? And when was it that you start actually thinking about pro wrestling as a career?
So it was something that I've just always been a huge fan of it. Always followed it. I never had the like falling off period in wrestling. In life, I just kind of always kept up with it. And then in 2016, Jason Wells, Lee Montgomery, and Ken Murphy started Cape Championship Wrestling. And I started watching it. I started going to those shows live. And then Podzilla 1985, the podcast that I'm a part of, Pro Wrestling Unscripted, on that PZ85 network, we decided that it was local wrestling. We're going to cover it because we want to support local wrestling. And we started doing that. A lot of the wrestlers like Brandon Barbwire, Billy Hills, and Austin Lane started like sending stuff into us because they knew we would hype the shows like the week of. And we started working that way. I ended up getting a commentary gig. At the same time, Billy gets me to start going to Stride as a fan. That's super important to note. I feel like. So like November 2016, I started going to Stride as well, just as a fan. While doing these podcasts for CCW, we were also doing stuff for Stride. But CCW got a Fight TV deal, and they needed commentators. So they just used the podcast cast. That's weird to say. They used us as the commentary team. We did that for 7 months, and then they opened up a training opportunity at Cape, and Big Lee pretty much hit me with the Marty McFly chicken line where he said, "There's no way that you could do this." And then, again, very Marty McFly of me, I said, "Of course I can do it." So we did it on a bet that I couldn't hang. And I told myself, I'll do a couple, maybe ref a couple matches, but I'm not going to do this. Like, I probably will never end up wrestling. And that was beginning of 2018, and I'm still doing it, which is good. Lee got an amazing return on that transaction. He keeps saying, he was like, "You were my best get because I didn't have to try. I just called you a chicken and you did it, and now you're here all the time." So yeah, that's how it very much was a bet. That's how I started training, and then Brandon Barbwire at Cape was the head trainer, and he took a liking to me, and apparently it was something that I got the fundamentals down with him very quickly. So he told me that you can do this once a month because we only run shows once a month in Cape, so we only got to train once a month. It's not like Strider where we have a building.
Right.
He said you can do this once a month, but you'll never get anywhere. So you need to find somewhere else to go. and there's three viable options. I live in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is where we run CCW. My viable options were go up to St. Louis a couple times a week. That's like 2.5 hours. I could go down in Tennessee and train with Sarge O'Reilly. That's 2 or a couple hours a week, or 2 hours back and forth. They do once a week whenever they run shows. And then Stride, which I had already kind of built a quasi-working relationship with, because we would ask Heath for cards so we could preview the shows on our podcast. So he already knew who I was, and that relationship was already there. So I started going to Stride in June or July of 2018 and start training that way.
Really? I,
Yeah.
watching you, like, you think, like, and I just didn't know you'd only been wrestling for a few years. I thought, like, you were kind of one of the ground floor sort of Stride wrestlers, but no, wow, I'm shocked to learn this.
I started training the same time with Zoe Moore. Riser had been training a couple months before me,
Okay.
but that training started. His training started at Stride, and my started at CCW. There was a couple months where I was just doing CCW to get the bump aspect of wrestling down,
Right.
and then I went to Stride, and they taught me a lot of the footwork fundamentals. But I missed Riser. I started training. It was me. It was Galloway, and
Okay.
it was B-Rad.
Okay.
So
All
I'm in that group of trainees, and
okay.
Zoe Moore.
Okay. Um, do you feel like having that experience, learning bumping at Cape, helped you whenever you went to start training at Stride, which I've heard from the trainees and from Heath himself. He's he's a fair trainer, but he's a tough trainer. Do you feel like that kind of helped you prepare physically or mentally for training under Heath?
Oh yeah, and that was the best thing about the way I trained is I trained with a lot of people that cared about me, Heath included. Um, I am so I have a public education. I'm a teacher in my real life, so I'm very used to being like doing something and then being told, hey, that doesn't work that way. Do it a different way, or like advice, like constructive criticism, stuff like that. So I was very used to it in my professional life. When it came to wrestling, I was trained by a bunch of people that cared about me, which is a very important and underestimated thing in wrestling. Is you have to be trained by people that care about you, because you can get people that just want to bump you around and take your money, but if you can find some people that truly want you to get better, that mental aspect of being told that you suck at everything really doesn't, like, you understand that it comes from a place of love and not hate.
Right.
So Barbed Wire and I were friends before I started training, and then Hatton knew who I was and knew that I was respectful. So
Gotcha.
Hatton always wanted me to get better. Barbed Wire always wanted me to get better, and there were some times that the words "get better" weren't used. They were usually a little bit more salty and a little bit more heated.
Right.
But that's what makes you better, in my opinion. I've been trained by a lot of different people. Just through Cape and Stride, we were in the mall and then we weren't in the mall, so there was a lot of different people kind of in and out helping with training. So I got a lot of different looks on how to do things. I found a lot of different ways how to skin the cat.
Gotcha. If you could compare the CCW training with Brandon Barbed Wire to the Stride training you got with Heath, how would you compare and contrast both of them?
Um, well, I don't train at Cape now, but I very much am like the middle person of I'm the one that you'll go to if somebody wants to start training at Cape. I'm the one you'll go to like set everything up. So I kind of get to see how the difference is. At Stride, you're getting to train 8 to 10 months or 8 to 10 times a month. So you can get in there and you can learn a whole lot of. You get your footwork down, how to lock up, how to take hold, stuff, this, that, and another. You get to learn that at Stride, whereas Cape is very much a polishing school if used properly. Um, Whenever I started at Cape, it was learning how to lock up and bump. But the second I went to Stride and I started just kind of fine tuning all of that with Hatton and Spade, and Flood was training for a little bit. I was trained a little bit by Dexter Roswell and Red Daniels. Whenever I started learning how to actually kind of wrestle, Brandon loved it because he was like, all right, cool. This is a different way you can do this. This is a way to make it look better. You can kind of start. He started working a lot more psychology with me. at CCW. So I was learning all of my basics and fundamentals and how to set a matchup at Stride. And then whenever I'd go see Brandon, it was very much now how do you make that a story? But everybody in Cape's a little bit different. We have people that very much do go out and train at different places and come to us, and then we have a whole new set of tools to work with. Peyton Ayers at Stride is somebody that did that, where he did a couple of sessions at Cape and then went to Stride and has gotten. God, Peyton is amazing already.
Oh yeah.
And he's only going to get better, and it's because he took the time to kind of get that groundwork. Stride is a very amazing groundwork building company. Hatton I am convinced Hatton can teach almost anybody how to wrestle, which again is a super important aspect to having a teacher. And he did that with me, and he did it with people like Peyton, and we were able to go work other places and build up training like acumen that way. So for me, Cape was very much a polishing school where I got to go in and kind of fine tune the things I would learn at Stride. So I would get the basics at Stride, and then I would kind of tune it up at Cape.
Do you have any memories of your first pro wrestling match?
Oh man, that day was super awesome. So I wasn't booked that day to wrestle. We had just started the assistant gimmick. It was like my second show actually being in the show. And I was supposed to manage like 3 matches that night with Jay Wellington Beauregard.
Okay.
And I'll never forget it. My girlfriend woke up. I wake up around 8:00 in the morning. She woke up before me and she said, "You need to check your phone right now," because she saw that Hatton messaged me, and he said, "Hey, these two people are canceled today, so you're wrestling." Wasn't prepared for it. Wasn't ready to do it. I texted Billy Hills because we're pretty good friends. We are really good friends, and I told him, I was like, "Hey, I'm wrestling tonight." And he was like, "All right, cool." So he got the matches changed to where I would be wrestling him and Aaron Brooks. It was me and Brian Riches versus Aaron Brooks and Billy. It was in El Dorado High School. We went way too long. I remember that being a thing. But my strikes looked bad, which isn't nothing's really changed in the last 3 years. My strikes still look bad, but they look better now, obviously. And I didn't like puke out there, so I'm pretty proud of it as a first match. Sarah Summers was in the. I just remember that El Dorado has this long, long hall, like tunnel almost, or it seemed long at the time. And I remember seeing Sarah Summers watching it, and then whenever I got to the back, she like gave me the biggest hug and told me how proud she was of me. Watching it back, I'm sure there's like 1,000 things I could think that were wrong that I did, because obviously. But I remember it was a tag match. We didn't stink up the place, and Billy Hills power slammed me. That's how that match went. I'm pretty sure.
Well, can't really ask for much more than that, especially when you got Billy in there.
Yeah, no, I love Billy. I've wrestled Billy in almost every sense I've tagged with him. I've tagged against him, and I've worked him in singles, and he is an absolute joy. He does a lot of backstage stuff for us at CCW, and he's an absolute joy every time you can be around him, because he's so knowledgeable of what wrestling should be that it never fails. I'll have a match in Cape, and depending on how I feel about it, I'll go let off some steam, or I'll go like talk to the people I was in the ring with, and then I'll go talk to Billy and ask how he thought about it, or if I'll apologize for going over or under whatever, and then we'll talk about it for a little bit. But yeah, no, he's an incredible asset to have backstage there, especially with the amount of young guys we have at CCW.
And great guy to talk to. I mean,
oh yeah,
I had him on the show. It was one of my favorite podcasts. Just the man knows how to tell a story, and tell a story really well. And his journey is incredible.
Yeah, we talk a lot about action figures.
That could be a whole other podcast with me and you if you want to talk action figures.
I'm a big fan, but yeah, no, that's me and Billy talk a little bit about wrestling. It's mainly action figures nowadays. They got the Power Rangers Turtles figures coming up, and we're figuring out how we're going to do that.
I didn't know about those.
Oh yeah, they're pretty sweet. But yeah, no, I love Billy to death. But yeah, that was the first match. It wasn't the worst first match I've ever seen, I think, because I went back and watched it on my phone. It wasn't the worst first match I've ever seen, which was good. But I'm pretty sure it's because I had Billy in there with me.
All right, so you mentioned you had the gimmick of the assistant. Tell us a little bit about that gimmick and then how that sort of your journey from that to becoming one half of the wrestling buddies with Jay Spade.
Um, the wrestling buddy story, or not the wrestling buddy story. It'll fall in line with that. But everything that I've ever done in wrestling just kind of fell in my lap with how it kind of worked. My character at CCW happened because Austin Lane wanted to wrestle me because he knew I was brand new and he wanted to see if he could get a good match out of me, I think. So he was like, I'm going to slap you over the barricade at this match and then we're going to wrestle in a month. The assistant thing happened almost the exact same way. I remember I had just gotten back to my house from Dallas. I have some friends down there. This was summer 2018. And I'm gone for like a week. I come back. I'm black because it's like a 10-hour drive. And I went to training the night that I came back. So I woke up the next day sore and tired. It was an amazing combination. And I woke up, Billy saying, hey, I need you to call me. So I call him and he says, hey, this person was supposed to do this promo with Jay Wellington. I need you to get in clothes that you would wear when you're teaching and meet me here. And it was in the middle of nowhere, Illinois. I still don't know exactly where it was at. And it was me, it was Billy, it was Jay Wellington Beauregard, and it was Kevin Huntsberger. And they laid out the story of Jay Wellington being punished by Sam Hunter for interfering in matches. And he had to go work on Billy Hills' farm. So they're running all this by me, and I said, all right, what am I doing? And they said, Jay Wellington doesn't want to touch anything, so you're going to be the assistant. And I was like, cool, I can do that. That's easy. What do you want me to do? And they said, you're going to get hit in the back with Georgia, which is this giant log that Billy carries around with him. I'm going to hit you in the back, and then we're just going to kind of prop you up in places while you're unconscious. So wear sunglasses. So we do this promo. So I wasn't even supposed to be me. It's super important. If anybody has seen this promo set, it's on Stride's page, and I think I shared it. It was like 2 weeks ago. It popped up on my feed, and I reshared it, kind of told the backstory of I wasn't even supposed to be this person. It just kind of lucked in that way. So we do that. I'm pretty sure I was supposed to be part of the Redneck World Order with Redneck and all those guys. But then Tyler saw the promo and said, nope, you're just going to be Jay Wellington Beauregard's assistant.
Okay.
We were doing the DR party time, so it made I was going to be in a faction either way. This just already gave me a character, so I just kind of fell into it. I did that for 3-4 months, and then me and Dexter Roswell branched off and became our own tag team. Had a short title run with him. We split, and then I was kind of just a singles competitor at that point, and I didn't really have a direction of what I was going to do, or at least at the time I didn't know what I was going to do. And then Jay Spade needed a tag partner, and I said, that's something I could do. Like, I pitched it to Jay. He said, I need a face to be a tag partner with, and I'm like, I'm a face who's not really doing anything. And he said, all right. We talked to Tyler, or we talked to Heath about it, and he was cool with it, and we became the Wrestling Buddies. Wrestling Buddies came up because we were facing the Kings of Destiny, Roger Mathis and Chris Hargis. And the joke I made was, well, anytime we get in the ring with them, they're going to throw us around like those Wrestling Buddies. So that should just be our gimmick. And Jay loved it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Jay loved it automatically. And then I think we came out to the tag team music he was using with Flood before, and he didn't want to use it anymore. And I think it was like after our first or second match together, and he was like, we need to think of our own music. And I was driving from, I remember I just passed Carbondale. I was heading to Cape. And I said, what about the Friends theme music? And he was like, what's the name? Like, he knew the song, but he wanted to listen to it, so I sent it to him. And he was like, yeah, that'll work. And we just kind of fell into it. And Jay's one of the people that helped train whenever I start out. So, and we get along a whole lot. Like, there's probably not a day goes by where I don't talk to Jay. And I'm pretty sure 80% of what you see as us interacting with each other as the Wrestling Buddies is very much as how me and him are as friends. He makes it a point to send me the most horrible dad jokes every day.
Gotta love that.
Oh God, I hate it so much. They're so bad, and they irritate the living hell out of me. But he'll send me about one a day. The one today was, "Did you get the email about meat?" And I said, "Go to hell." And he said it was spam. Don't worry about it. And I was just like, I don't like you. I really like. I don't understand why we're friends half the time. But yeah, no, Jay's amazing,
It,
and
it
I've been super blessed to be a part of this tag team.
sounds a lot about like my friendships where I like we just tell ridiculous jokes and with long setups. There I have a friend, he'll tell a dad joke and he'll think he's telling a real story. And then
Oh,
and then like he'll tell the story for like 2 minutes and then it ends up being just a pun and you're just like ugh.
you get real mad. Oh, he does that to me all the time.
Here, here
Oh God.
his best one, I'll tell this one. This was about 6-7 years ago. We were driving around Carbondale, and we drive by like Ross had just opened, or I'd never really been in there, and I go, "Oh hey, I didn't know they sold guy jeans inside Ross's." And he goes,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, they do sell John Laurinaitis and AJ Styles in there." And I'm like, "What?" It's like
Oh, that's
they
that's
they
solid.
do sell John Laurinaitis and AJ Styles in there, and I'm like driving around like I'm on Highway 13, and I finally realized I'm like, "You son of a bitch!" And I start punching him on the shoulder.
Oh, that's a really good one though. Like that would have irritated me, not because of like the level of dad joke that was, but that's just solid. That's a good quality joke
Yeah,
right there.
yeah, that's a good one.
Ooh,
we
but
do a
yeah,
whole,
no.
we
So,
do a whole podcast of dad jokes. I
oh
mean,
God, I would be so over it after like three. Uh, because it's every day. I'm not even joking, Eli. It's every day with Jay. I get one at least once a day from him because he would like, and I'll always be. It's always funny because he'll do it when I'm like at other shows, and I'll be bitching about something, and then he'll just throw it out there, and I'm like, "Are you trying to like make my mood worse?" Because like I gotta go to work tonight, and I'm gonna kill somebody now because like now I'm irritated, and you're messing with me more. But yeah, no, it's all day with him and those jokes. It cracks me like I love him to death and he cracks me up, but oh God, it's the worst.
at least he isn't telling me anti jokes. Have you heard of the anti jokes?
No, is it not supposed to be funny at the end? Because that's the only way that makes sense to me.
That's kind of the way it's like got to set up like a joke, but then it's like there is not one. Like, why did the monkey fall out of the tree? It was
Is it because
dead.
he slipped? Oh, it
No,
was dead. Oh
it's
yeah,
dead.
yeah.
It's dead. Um,
Mm,
what's what's brown and sticky?
stick. Yeah.
Yeah, stick. You
Oh
know.
God.
Yeah, those are that's like the next level. You know, like that's
We
legend
don't.
difficulty of
We
the
don't
dad joke.
need. We just won't speak this to Jay ever.
Hopefully, he doesn't listen to this one.
Oh, I'm still talking about him. He'll still be listening. Damn it. Yeah, no, he's definitely gonna start doing this to me now.
uh,
Cool.
I'm sorry I did that to you, but
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine.
um, circling back a little bit, you mentioned your tag team with Dexter Roswell. Any memories of that run and just memories of Dexter? He was just a really really awesome and talented guy.
He's really good at getting heat. He's he is phenomenal at getting heat. I remember when we won the tag champs. We beat Farmer and Scott Phoenix. We beat them for the belts in like February of 2019, and it was at a school, which is really weird because like Hatton won't. Title changes at schools are kind of a weird thing that you don't see a whole lot of, and you definitely don't see the heels win the titles at those buildings unless they're already holding it. And he said like, "Hey, you guys are taking the belts tonight. Um, make the crowd as mad as possible." So we were like, "All right, cool." The finish was we handcuffed Billy to or Dexter handcuffed Billy to the ring post. Scotty curb stomped me, and then I just was dead the whole time. Dexter comes in, hits him with the final vote or whatever. His skull crushing finale. I forget what he calls it. In my head, it's always been called the final vote. I don't know if that's the name of the move. It's just the move. That's what I named it.
That's a good name
Um,
for it, though.
yeah, I know, and it's one of those that I don't know. I forget what he calls it. But if it's not that, I'm sorry. But he hits that, and then he drapes my dead body on top of Scotty's, and we win that way. and the crowd gets super mad. And
And
then we were right before intermission in this school. I think it was West Frankfort.
okay, I was gonna say, like, what school was this? And if it is West Frankfurt, you know, like that's from the old days of APW. There's some hot crowds in West Frankfurt.
And the thing of it is I'm completely ignorant to that whole scene.
Gotcha.
Like I've never been to any of it, so I didn't know any of that. So the crowd is pretty ticked off, which is exactly what we wanted. So we were good. And then we were offering for a fundraiser for the school is if you want to take a picture with a wrestler, go to the cafeteria during intermission. We were signing signatures beforehand. You could take pictures with them during intermission. And so somebody said, hey, they're doing the photo op now. We had just won the belts like 10 minutes before, if that. And so Dexter and I walk out to the cafeteria. Along the way, I had made a few enemies because kids wanted my signature, and I would take their pen and just do a line and then throw their pen on the ground. Like I have the signature, and there's a certain way I do it, but I literally just did like a diagonal line, not even through the whole paper. Like I'm talking like an inch, and then I dropped the pen in front of them. And we were doing that, and Dexter was yelling at everybody. And I just remember that we were the only wrestlers that went out there. Everybody else stayed in the locker room, and it was just us two. And Dexter was yelling at these kids for like 10 minutes. Nobody wanted our picture. Dexter had some work friends from his shoot job. He had a couple of work friends, and we got our pictures taken with them, and got booed during that. And then I think we took a picture together with the belts, and I think that's still on my fridge. And then we got the hell out of there. But Dexter was just yelling at him the whole time, and we were getting booed. And it was like it felt like an eternity. I'm sure it was only like 10 minutes, but he was just got them so mad. It was so much fun. It was so wild to see him do that. At a certain point, I was like, Dexter, we gotta get out of here before like we can't get out of here, because like he was legit making them mad, and I'm like like this is a school, and like I would like to think a teenager wouldn't punch me in the face, but I've also, as being a teacher, wouldn't be surprised if a teenager punched me in the face. Like I kind of know the dichotomy of what I'm dealing with here, and I'm like, yeah, we should probably get back to the locker room. That was probably the most fun I think I'd ever had with them in the ring, was winning the belts. But working with him was a lot of fun, and it kind of, I understood the groundwork on how to be a heel. Now, granted, I think I've used that muscle maybe one other time in the last 3.5 years of wrestling matches, but working with him really did help me understand how to elicit that crowd response.
So you mentioned that you're a school teacher, and we'll get back to more stuff with Jay and CCW, but I want to take this opportunity to ask you. You mentioned you're a school teacher and you're a professional wrestler. I've had Jay Travelstead as a guest on the show, another great interview. Everybody should go check that one out. But is it always kind of like, what's it like, with your students who may be wrestling fans, knowing that you're a pro wrestler and that you're doing what they, with me, like when I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, all wrestlers were like gods, and if I knew like one of my teachers was a pro wrestler, I'd just be like in shock and awe, even if it was, not on a WWF or WCW level.
Yeah, yeah.
What's your relationship like with your students that know about your wrestling career, and just like, what is that dichotomy as a teacher who wrestles?
I hide it from them.
Gotcha.
There was I teach 3 through 5. I had one student that showed up at a show in Cape, because I don't teach in Cape Girardeau. I teach in a town a little bit north where I'm from, and I drive back and forth, and I tell people, because that's like, I like going to Walmart and not being like bothered.
Right.
That's, so I live 30 minutes away from where I teach. It's a good plan. But I had a student show up to one of the shows and instantly got scared, because like my principals kind of knew, but I very much like leaned on the whole like, oh, wrestling is fake. Like I leaned on that with my like coworkers, because all my coworkers know I do it. But like they don't think anything of it.
Right.
So they don't like it's just something that we don't talk about in front of the students at all, because I told them like I really don't want to promote simulated violence at work, especially with what I do. If I was doing anything else, I probably wouldn't care. But like, I don't want the students to know that it's a work,
Gotcha.
because like I still have young kids that would probably believe that it's 100% real. So I don't want them to think that A, it's all work, or B, well, I almost said the shoot name, brother. Mr. Anthony does it. Um, Mr. Anthony does it, so I can do it.
Right.
So I keep it from him. I did tell the student, I used my teacher voice. He bought one of my shirts, and I said, "You can never wear this at school. I will know what it is instantly and get," because like at our school, we're not supposed to like have wrestling shirts and stuff like that. They're super old school. Because again, it's a school I went to, and I got in trouble for wearing a DX shirt in '98. So like
Right.
I know what policies I'm dealing with here. So I was like, I'll tell them it's a wrestling shirt, and they'll know. So that kid was cool because he like never told anybody. Um, my mom is works in the same district, and she's told a few students, because like my mom is like the super stereotypical proud mom, and like has to show everybody what her baby does.
Right.
And like she's shown a couple students, and whenever they bring it up in the class, I just lie. And it's one of those, like, wrestling is just a performance art. You get really good at just like it's a big show. You get used to telling these stories. So I'll just tell the reverse story. Mr. Anthony, I heard you wrestle. No, I don't. I don't know where you'd hear that from. Your mom? She's crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. And like I would just get through it so quick that nobody would question me on it. So only like a couple students know. Now, if we ever work a show in the town that I'm at, which has been talked about, of course I would do it, and I would probably use my actual name, because that would probably help out tickets a little bit.
Right.
But as of right now, I don't really let my students in on it. My students know I'm a wrestling fan because I have like New Day Funko Pops in my room and stuff like that. But they don't know that, like, not all of them know that I do it on the weekends.
Gotcha. Um, will there ever be a time where you go, yeah, I guess where you actually admit it to the students, or is that just something that is that just some kind of secret identity life that's never gonna the streams will never kind of cross?
I had to work high school, so I've only ever taught little kids. I had a weird situation happen. I ended up having to teach high school, and this was right before COVID shut everything down.
Right.
So I'm like mid-February. I'm not an elementary teacher anymore. I'm a high school teacher, and they were supposed to have a concert. I teach music. They were supposed to have a concert the Sunday that I was supposed to win the tag belts. And originally, it was supposed to be a ladder match, and I had never done a ladder match before. The building ended up being too short for it, so we didn't do that, unfortunately. But the students were like, "Are we still having the concert?" And I said, "Well, I got a show," and it just accidentally came out, because like I was talking to the students and the principal at the same time about why I was canceling this concert, and they all knew what I was doing. And my thought process is it didn't get told to me early enough for me to be able to cancel the booking. So I was like, "No, I'm gonna fulfill this obligation to Hatton, because I knew 3 months out, and I just now got told that I had to do a concert the week of." So I
Right.
was like, "I have a show," and then the principal left, and they were like, "Well, where are you performing at?" And I said, "Oh, I have a match in Illinois," and it slipped out because I was talking to high schoolers and not elementary students, and they all looked at me like I was crazy. So all of those students knew I did it. But fortunately, like a week and a half later, Corona shut everything down, so I think it just kind of got like forgotten about, which is pretty sweet.
Nice. If
But the
there's
high
one good
schoolers,
thing about COVID, it was throwing everybody off the trail of you being a wrestler.
yeah, I didn't have to be a high school teacher that long, and a lot of them forgot that I did this. For a while, I forgot I was doing it too. Thank you, Hatton, for running shows, because that probably would have been, if it wasn't for Tyler still running the empty arena shows, there's a solid chance I probably wouldn't have been doing it anymore. Because I had finally gotten my body back to where it was like used to not throwing itself on the ground.
Right.
And then he was like, "Hey, I'm running empty arena shows. Are you available?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess I can." And then I've kind of fell back in love with wrestling, because like when you don't do it for a couple of months, it's like, well, I mean, I'm not in pain. That's cool. And then I got called to do it again, and I was like, oh, I wonder if it's going to hurt. And then it hurts a whole lot. So then you just kind of want to do it more so it doesn't hurt anymore. Like the Chris Jericho building the callus on your body is the most accurate thing I've ever heard. Because that, like, I think I was off for 2 months, and it was like the longest stretch I hadn't wrestled since I'd started. And those first couple of shows back sucked. I wrestled a couple times for Stride, a couple times for CCW, and it was a good thing I wasn't at work because I would have been like miserable, like not being able to move for a day or two. I didn't do anything bad. It's just I didn't do it. So I was super grateful that they were running during COVID, the empty arenas. As cruddy as it was not having fans, or in CCWs not as many fans, it was nice getting to like get back into it. Because yeah, if we would have just been off, there's a solid chance I'd have been like, oh, I don't know, because my body just got used to not hurting itself a little bit.
Getting back to tag teaming with Jay Spade. Currently, at the time of this recording, you are the Stride Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champions. And you also just got off of a killer match against one another for the Stride Cup, or in the Stride Cup tournament, I should say. Um, what are some of your best memories of tag teaming with Jay, and just, you mentioned the dad jokes. Just got any more good wrestling buddy stories?
Um, the goofy interviews, if you go back and watch any of those Stride shows that are on YouTube when we did promos together, those were always the most fun. Of just like, I just let Jay go and be as funny as he could, and then I just tried not to laugh around him. If you watch any of them, you notice that like Jay starts almost all of them, and then he'll do something. I'll never forget it. We had a half like boxing dummy, so it was just like half shoulders, and then the head. And Hatton said, Dalton, I want you to hold it, and Jay, you're going to punch it because you're facing Roger and Axe, and that's going to be the start of your promo, and just kind of figure it out from there. And I'm holding it, and I'm doing the corner man from Rocky's voice, telling him he's a bum, Jay, and like just being dumb because I know that I'm trying to make him laugh. And then Rachel comes up to talk to us, and he takes it and says, Dalton, get the lipstick off the dummy. And I didn't know he was gonna say it, but that like killed me inside, and I couldn't laugh. And if there's any of those promos, there's always at least one time where you see me like corpsing, where I'm like, just don't laugh. Like, you can smile because we're a goofy gimmick, but just whatever you do, don't laugh because we're gonna have to redo it, and he's gonna make it worse the second time. Because once, like, I have like a giggle problem, like if I start laughing, it's hard to break. Like it's hard for me to stop.
Right.
So, and he knows that. So if he can get me going, he knows that like he's got me. So all of those promos like murdered me because I was like, just whatever you do, don't laugh. Whatever you do, don't laugh. Because if you start, you're gonna have to restart it, which is gonna annoy everybody. And then Jay's already knows what the button is. And if Jay knows the button, he's gonna press it. He's like a little crack mouse. Like, he's gonna hit it to make sure he gets his little hit of that serotonin. And all of those like promos were a lot of fun. It's been really fun being tag champs with him because with the dichotomy of people we've gotten to work. Because we've had matches with Axe and Roger, and it doesn't really get better than that with like opponents. And then we'd have people that it was like their first and second match. So Jay really got to exercise how good he was, and then expected me to reach that level. Because like Jay has never babied me. Because Jay's been doing this for like 12 years, and I've been doing it for a lot like shorter of a time, but he never let me use that excuse. So I was always expected to be at the level that he was at, or he expected me to. And it really kind of, as a performer, it made me better as a whole because it kind of let me understand how all of this works and all of it makes sense. Because, and like you hear Hatton talk about matches being, not every match is about you. You got to figure out what the match is about. And Jay is another example of that, like teaching that lesson of, all right, well, we're getting this story over, so we got to make sure we hit these beats. So if you don't get your headbutt in, it's not the end of the world because it's not about your headbutt this match. It's about something else. I've gotten so much knowledge over the last, hell, we've almost been tagging for 2 years. And we've been tag champs for like a year and a half, I think. I've gotten so much knowledge around him, and every match has been an awesome learning experience for good or for bad. With Jay, before and after matches are always my favorite, just because like I think we both lock into what we're supposed to do so much that we don't have like really funny, goofy moments in between, like the ropes. But those before and afters are always my favorite, just because of the goofy stuff that we'll both come up with on the fly. and like ripping on our opponents. I started to chant one time, and he just looked at me and shook his head and said, "You had to do it, didn't you?" And I was like, "They left it open for me.
What
I
was the
couldn't."
chant? What was the chant?
It was whenever Gallows and David Dave were tagging, and they were hashtag team.
Yes, I'm still
And
I'm still losing sleep over hashtag team breaking up. That was a tragic moment in my life, but yes.
so they started a hashtag team, and nobody did it. So I like the crowd got quiet, and I said, Gallows, watch me do it. And I put that name sucks, and I got everybody to do it. And Jay just looked at me because I think he was getting ready to start the match, and I just stopped everything for that moment. And he just looked at me and shook his head. And I'm like, I feel like we have to work less now. I feel like we have them on our side. I feel like we accomplished exactly what we needed to do on this one.
I was there for that. I just you just had to remind me. I remember hashtag team. I don't remember that name sucks, but now you've reminded me of that whole match.
Yeah. That was the one where I almost came into the ring and almost fell in between the ropes. And if you go back and watch it, Dave hits me, and I try to get in the ring, and I trip, and I end up because I get in the ring weird, like I slide in even through like the second and top rope. So I tried sliding in, I got caught up on the ropes, and I was kind of dangling there while yelling at the ref. And I finally get my feet down. I get on the outside because it was that 6-man with Zoe Moore. We had her with us, that mixed tag. And she just looks at me, and me and her are really good friends too. And she was just like, I'm absolutely happy that happened to you because that's the greatest thing I ever saw. Because you never looked worried about almost falling and hurting yourself, but you kept yelling at the ref because they're cheating. And I said, yeah, I'm really mad too. So that probably kept it from where I wasn't worried about falling. I was so pissed off that I got tangled up in the ropes though. Because like it was basic getting in the ring 101 that I don't listen to, and I just end up dangling for a second. I was so furious at that moment. But yeah, that was the same That Name Sucks match.
So very recently, you got to wrestle Jay. Phenomenal match. Really great match. Really enjoyed it. What are your memories of that match? Of the match, preparation of the match, after the match. Take me through when I don't want to say the wrestling buddies exploded, but the wrestling buddies were a little less of buddies that night.
Oh yeah, I mean we had to. It was a tournament. Jay and I are both competitors, and we both. I know for a fact he wanted that heavyweight championship belt, and I've never gotten it. I've never won a singles title anywhere. So we both kind of knew going in that this was going to be a match that we were both going to have to go a little bit harder for than what we were expecting. The preparation, figuring it out. Now, if we're going to peel back the curtain a little bit, I don't know how much you do that on your show as like a whole, but
You're free to say whatever
all
you
right.
want.
So that was all. That was all the K-fob on that first part. So we get told that we're doing this match, and me and Jay kind of understand the importance of it because everybody knows how good Jay is. Like, Jay is, whenever I think of Stride, it's like Jay Spade, Hatton, Roger, Axe, and Cash. Like, those are the names, and like Flood too, but like people that are still actively kind of wrestling with the company. You have those names, and Jay's held the heavyweight. Like, Jay's held every belt in that company besides the No Limit Descendant because he was a tag champ when that belt got initiated. And it was an honor to get a tag with him. To know that I was going to be in the semifinals with him was exciting because it was one of those things where I don't know, like, this is always a self-doubt in my head of I don't know how good I am personally as a wrestler. So I came into that match with a chip on my shoulder that I had to prove that I could keep up with them. And I kind of told him, like, this match means a lot more to me than what a lot of people would expect because this is kind of the first time at Stride in a good long while where I was given a singles match that meant something. The last time I had a singles match at Stride that was in front of fans was at the AAPW reunion show. And that was I wrestled Carnage, and I knew that was like Hatton because I didn't know anything about AAPW at the time because I'm from Missouri and I never caught the shows in Illinois. But Hatton kind of explained to me that like Carnage was the guy that beat up on the new kids. So whenever he pinned that match, he said, "I want like you are that new kid. That like this is the story I'm telling." and that meant a lot to me. Told me that Hatton had a little bit of faith in me. And I'm willing to say I would probably have had a good singles run, but I really wanted to tag with Jay, and Jay needed a partner, and it just kind of fell into the fact that we just were the tag champions for as long as we have been. So the match meant a whole lot to me because I knew that I had something to prove to the Stride fans, because like I don't really know how serious they take me as a competitor. There's a couple of people that at Stride that come and see me at Cape and kind of know like the moveset that I use there. Not that it's a lot different than what I do at Stride, but it's different kind of situations, and I'm with a different tag partner, so I have to kind of change up what I do. So, but like a lot of people at Stride just kind of only know me as the wrestling buddy, and like I'm not gonna lie, I feel like the Genetti sometimes, just because it's Jay, and you kind of feel like the lesser of the two. I wanted to go in to prove that no, like Jay is very much the veteran. Jay very much is the better worker of the two of us, but I'm not as far behind as everybody likes to think I am. And that's kind of where my headspace was at with it. And I kind of like let Jay know that this match meant a lot to me. So we very much figured out how to make this work storyline wise and how to make it work going forward. Of kind of like, oh no, Dalton is not top tier at Stride because I'm so far from that, from the amount of great talent we have there. But like, I'm a lot better than what probably people give me credit for.
Right.
And I would like to think that match did that.
Absolutely, it did. Absolutely.
Just because like you don't see that a lot from me. I'm very much the goofier of the two, doing like just dumb stuff. It was really nice to get in there and kind of have a serious moment with them. Fun fact about that story, so I have 4 cats, and I'm also allergic to cats. I got a new kitten 2 weeks before that match, and anytime I get a new cat, my allergies are absolutely shot. So I couldn't breathe properly until a day before that match, and I was super worried about it. Just because I was like, I don't know if my gas, like if I'm gonna have any gas in the tank for this. And I told Jay that I was like, hey, just be easy with me because I don't know if I'm gonna be able to breathe properly. I was super worried that whole match, but I think we got in there and we told a really good story with what we had at our disposal.
I believe you did. I believe you
Yes,
very much did. I really love that match.
I appreciate it. It's my favorite match I've had. If you ask me that in a little bit, that's my favorite match I've ever had was that one with Jay, just because that was kind of the first one where it wasn't the trainee Dalton. Like it very much was an established person versus an established person, and I got to have a good, serious match with somebody, and I really like enjoyed it and appreciated everything that Jay and I were able to do with and for each other in that little bit of business.
Switching gears from Stride a little bit, I recently got to see you, very recently, in fact, got to see you at Cape Championship Wrestling. It was my first time getting to see a Cape Championship Wrestling event, and happy to see a familiar face on there. But tell me more about your time in Cape Championship Wrestling.
Like I said earlier in the show, I started as a commentator and a backstage interviewer. Like if you go on Fight TV and you hit the very first, this is a really fun, distinguished like thing that I get to brag about. If you go to the very first episode of CCW Chaos, which was the 30-minute show we ran, I am the very first face you see out of the opening vignette. Because it was just my segment was the first one. And it's one of those things. So I started as a backstage interviewer, started training, ended up having a really, really good feud with Shannon Young, Mr. 100, because he was a ring announcer at the time, and Jason Wells just kind of booked this story around me and Shannon of him getting wrestlers to beat me up and me not dying. That match or that story ended with a really, really fun, memorable experience. Not the best memorable experience because there's a little asterisk next to it from Eternity. It was Justice Smart and the LA Hustlers versus me, Marco Stunt, and Joey Ryan. So like
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that's a bummer. So like, but that was a lot of like that whole story was a lot of fun. I got to wrestle Shane at the end of it and put him through a door. That was cool, like an actual door. That was neat. I got a feud with Heath Hatton for a little bit at CCW. That was a lot of fun, even though I knocked myself out in the second match. And then I've been teaming with Slammer ever since. I've had a couple of singles here and there, but it's pretty much been me and old Slammer tagging with each other um, for the Cape Championship Tag Division for a while. Uh, I have a lot of fun there just because there's a little bit more free reign to kind of uh, plot out matches and whatnot. And there's the agents we have there are people that help train me a whole lot, so I get to kind of go back under that learning trio with like Brandon Barbwire and Justin Smart. Marco Stunt, agent in my entire match last. Did you go to Saturday's show?
Yes.
All right, so Marco Stunt had a big hand in that match. We kind of gave him the base work, and he kind of filled in the blanks there. CCW is a different animal than Stride, though, for sure, just because we have that live. We start doing that live aspect of being on Fight TV every month, and that's a level of nerves that I enjoy and also hate at the same time.
Right.
Because when we were editing the shows, it was a lot different. You can edit, like we could edit out mistakes if we could figure it out with the sound. But now it's very much flying without a net, and it's exciting. But I think it's made me a better worker overall, where it's like I can start thinking on my feet a little bit more. But yeah, no, started as an announcer, got a really, really cool, different story. My first one in, which to this day I'm not 100% sure I deserved, but it's what it was given to me. And have gotten to do a lot of really cool things. Like I said, I've teamed with Glacier. I've got a team with Marco. I've got to wrestle a lot of really good talent in the area. It's at CCW as well. Justin Smart's one of my favorite people to work there. I've yet to wrestle Brandon ever. It's such a bummer. But a lot of my favorite memories in wrestling came from CCW. And a lot of those really cool stories we were able to tell.
Going back a little bit, you mentioned you started out as a commentator. I have very briefly got to do commentary for MMWA in South Broadway. And
Yeah.
it is one of the most difficult, like, you want to talk about nerves, like, that gave me, and I just, it is everybody that thinks that commentary is easy, like, my hat's off to everybody, whether they're legendary commentators or, bottom of the barrel. My hat's off to anybody who does that, especially on a
Yeah.
mainstream promotion after attempting it a couple times. What were your
Uh,
thoughts about commentating and the challenges that being a pro wrestling commentator present?
I was so happy when I started training because I knew it was going to get me an out on doing commentary. I hated doing commentary. It's the most difficult thing in the world. And we ran a 4-person booth, which is really weird. But it was very much Shannon and Asa were our 1 and 2, and then me and Allie were the other 2 commentators, and we just kind of like filled in. And they very much used me as like the Mike Tenay, like just fill in background of the workers. So like it was cool because I got to talk to everybody because I kind of had to know what they were about, so I could fill in on commentary, and I didn't have to do a whole lot. But we did it all in post. I've done live commentary once. I had a mouth injury. My lip was completely like my lip split in half, and I couldn't wrestle for a month. So I did commentary with Asa at the Cage show, which I think that whole show's on YouTube. That was the last time I've done no, that was the last time I did commentary that it actually ended up being used. But man, I didn't miss it. I went like 6 months without doing it, almost a year without doing commentary, and I went back and tried doing it, and man, that is not a bicycle at all. For some people, it is. Asa Gray, the guy we have at CCW, it's a bicycle for him. He's an incredible talent, and same with Kevin Huntsberger. I'm very fortunate to be on shows with really good commentators. But because I don't envy their job at all. What I do is easier. I don't have to tell a story with my mouth. I can show them that I'm in pain. I hate telling somebody I'm in pain. I hate having to explain somebody's pain for them because it's weird. Yeah, no, my hat's off to anybody that does the commentary because it's not easy, and it's one of those things that if I get asked to do it, I probably would, but it wouldn't be a voluntary situation.
Okay. So yeah, any as much as grief as some of my other podcast brethren want to give, Jr. and certain guys on TV nowadays. For the record, as much as we complain about them, we could not do their job.
No, no. JR's earned so many goodwill tokens over the last 30 years that I just let it slide.
I let most things slide, but I couldn't let WWE Dynamite slide a few weeks ago. That's what. I can't defend you anymore, Jr.
Oh man, that's muscle memory. That's muscle memory. Uh, and like I feel bad for him sometimes. I don't have like the Jim Cornette philosophy on wrestling at all. But whenever he talks about JR sounding miserable on that at that table, sometimes man, he ain't lying. Because this is very much a wrestling that JR is not used to. He had to call a Nick Gage match last week. I feel for the man.
Yeah.
And I love Nick Gage. I've met him, super fucking sweet dude. But sorry if I'm not allowed to cuss.
Oh no, you can say. Okay, you just put over Nick Gage, and I was basically I am. I mean, if he's a nice guy and he was nice to you, I applaud him.
Yeah,
I'm not a
super.
Nick Gage fan in the slightest.
I'll never hold that against anybody. I had a really good interaction with him at a show. Super polite to me, but I get it. I'm not a deathmatch person, but JR had to watch that. I am willing to say that JR is not a deathmatch guy, to say the least. And if you listen to the commentary on that, oh, because like there's been some really good modern Jim Ross called matches. That was not one of them.
No.
And I feel for him a little bit, but yeah, no, I definitely couldn't do WWE from what I've heard of just people talking to you. It's hard enough trying to figure out what you're going to say, let alone hearing somebody tell you what you should say while you're trying to figure it out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah, definitely all the props to Jr. But still, you can't call it WWE Dynamite there.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But it's yeah, I had to call Nick Gage. Well, tell me about your interaction with Nick Gage. I mean, everybody who listened to my live stream got to listen to me personally rant on Nick Gage and why I don't care for him and why I don't believe in this MDK stuff. Let's hear a good story about Nick Gage to balance out my channel a little bit.
So, and I promise this isn't me trying to name drop, but like Marco started at CCW like before he blew up.
Right.
So I've known Marco for like 4 years. Like even before like the GCW show where he got his big break, like he was wrestling in Cave and putting on amazing matches. And through doing that, his parents would come to the shows, and I became really good friends with his dad and his mom. And they would just tell me these amazing stories about how sweet Nick Gage is. And like you, I wouldn't see it. Like, there's, like, this person is probably crazy. Like, I mean, to a certain extent, you have to be. But I would, and any person I'd worked shows with that worked shows with Nick Gage would talk about Gage and how, like, fucking cool he is. And so he got booked for a Cape show, which is really funny because in Missouri you can't blade. Like you're not like a bleeding can shut the show down. Like it's very strict in Missouri, and we got Nick Gage, which I thought was the funniest thing. So it was about a year ago. I think it was either June or July last year. So I mean, think about that. We had a show with fans in 2020 in the middle of the year. So like masks were mandated. We were expected to take everybody's temperature, and I'm not like. I don't own CCW, but I'm like one of the like front office people where I deal with stuff when I can. So I show up and I help set up the ring every show, and I help out, make sure the trainees are good to go and paying dues and all that. So I was asked if I could take every worker's temperature, and I was like, yeah, that's not scary because on this show we also had like it was a Comic-Con tied to it, so we had like Sammy Guevara,
Yes.
Priscilla Kelly. It was that show, and like Darby Allin was there, and then we had Nick Gage. So I'm taking everybody's temperature, and then I see Nick Gage. And I had the little temperature gun gimmick, and I was like, do I just not ask him? Because, like, I don't want to ask him. Because, like, I've heard that he's a sweet person, but what if he's not about this? Because COVID's a very polarizing, and this was in, like, the shit. This was in the middle of it.
Right.
Not that we're out of it by any stretch of the imagination, but this was, like, peak, like, we don't really know what's going on.
Right.
And you have all these differing thoughts, and I'm just expected to take this man's temperature.
Man who has died at the ring and been incarcerated for robbing a bank.
Yes, and I am expected to go say, hey, sir, I have to take your temperature. Not an easy feat. So I go up to him and I'm like, hey, my name's Dalton. Is it cool because of COVID if I take your temperature before you kind of get settled down? And he was like, yeah, man, no problem. So I was taking his temperature. He was asking my day. He was a super nice guy. And I was like, all right, man, you're good. If you need anything, my name is Dalton. I kind of know I know the building really well. So I was like, if you need anything, holler at me. Like I had to show Josh Alexander last show how to get to the ring. Like I'm that guy that has to like walk everybody around. So I was like, hey man, if you need anything, holler at me. Dalton, just ask around for me. I'm usually easy to find. He was like, oh fuck yeah, man, I'll talk to you later. So I have a match this was Super Show 4, and I was not the biggest fan of my performance in my match. I had just turned heel, and I hadn't been heel in a while, and I was very down about my own match. And I'll never forget, I walked through, kind of have my head down, I back on everybody, make sure they're good, and I walk by Nick Gage, and he just kind of looks at me with a look on his face, and he said, how was your match? And I said, I mean, the match was good. I wasn't really happy with my own performance, but like, you win some, you lose some. Like, I'm trying to learn. And he goes, fuck yeah, man, that's all it's all about, and he pats me on the back. And I'm like, this is the most wild experience I've ever had. Because you wouldn't think that Nick Gage is the kind of encouraging, yeah, man, just keep fucking trying kind of person. But he is. And it's really weird. And I got firsthand experience of it. So, like, I will never hold anybody's opinion about deathmatch wrestling. I'm not a deathmatch wrestling fan myself, but I understand its merit and why people are into it. It's not something that I don't think I'll ever partake in, but I get it. And I understand Nick Gage is a really polarizing person, but I've only had positive interactions with him. I had 2 very good interactions where I was like, Nick Gage is a cool guy, in just the small interactions I had. It's wild, and I understand why people don't like his style of work, but he was only polite to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for all the Nick Gage fans that thought that my channel was a little too rough on Nick Gage, especially after that match, and especially after some of the subsequent things that happened after that match, I have some positive Nick Gage stories on my channel now.
Yeah.
So MDK can put the pitchforks down and stop trying to come after me.
I'm not saying I'm MDK affiliated, but like, they're cool by me.
That's fair.
Yeah. I'll never eat Domino's again. They're dead to me. There's a Domino's like 2 blocks from my house, and never again. Little Caesars for life.
Okay, that's the opposite of what we said last week on our normal live stream. Last week, dating this recording, we were like, wow, Domino's, that's money AEW's losing. All the more reason not to book Nick Gage ever again.
That was the best viral marketing that I've ever seen in my 28 years of life. Picture in picture, order Domino's, bloody pizza cutter. I don't see how you get brand integration any better than that.
I think Domino's was a little pissy about it, but then again, I'm not a Nick Gage guy, so I'm not gonna.
I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it. It's just one of those like your horrible company and horrible pizza has not been trending on Twitter in quite a while, and now all the one bloody pizza cutter is going to be what makes you upset, Domino's. Come on.
There's worse pizza than Domino's out there, though. There is.
That's true. Yeah. Trying to think. They're all in Cape too, I'm sure.
I'm not familiar with the Cape pizza scene, unfortunately.
It's all chains. There's like 1 or 2 mom or pop like pizza places in town, but they're all way too overpriced.
I'm about to say when best pizza I've ever had, and this will piss off the Chicago folks that listen, is still Quattro's in Carbondale.
Oh, I had Ray's in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Brooklyn style pizza and like New York style pizza in general is substantially better.
Actually, yeah, I will say that a little on par with Quattro's. We went to, and I can't remember the name of it, but have a friend that lives in the New York area, and we went and met up with her WrestleMania 2 years ago, and she took us to a good place in the middle of New York City, and that was some pretty damn fine pizza as well.
Yeah, Chicago pizza's good. If we're in the debate, New York style is better to me, but I fucks with Chicago style pizza. It's good. I went to Survivor Series in 2019 when they did with the NXT SmackDown Raw.
Right.
That I was at that Survivor Series because Ryder and Hawkins was doing their live shows at the time, and they did one in Chicago. So it was like her Christmas present was that show. And then we ended up buying tickets to War Games and Survivor Series. And I ate Chicago style pizza twice in that 3-day stint. I'm pretty sure I'll never lose that weight. And it was really good. But gun to my head, which one's better? It's New York.
Okay, so Chicago style pizza, you Giordano's or Geno's?
We did both. I like Giordano's more.
Okay, I've told my friends that have heard the story are probably not gonna like me hearing it again on this podcast, but I heard everybody hype up Giordano's to this like unattainable level that when I
Yeah,
had it, I
yeah.
just went, "Hey, it's really good," and then I'm like, it wasn't on this like if you eat it, you live forever that they were kind of hyping it up to be, and then everybody
You
kind
mean
of yeah
you
like
mean it didn't make you a foot taller?
yeah, it
Like,
didn't.
yeah.
Yeah, like because they're just like, oh, best thing you'll ever have. Like you'll orgasm on first taste. You'll never get sick ever again after you like that's like everything short of those sort of things is where Giordano's is hyped. And then I went back to Chicago a couple years later for All In, and my hotel was right next to a Geno's, and I remember hearing from everybody that I knew about Geno's like, I don't know about Gino. I mean, the cornbread, that's not my thing. So like, I had like this nothing happening opinion on Geno's, but I'm like, I need a pizza. I'll get it. And then I really liked it. Like, it wasn't nearly as bad as everybody said it was. So it's like, Giordano's was better, but the overhype kind of killed it. Whereas Geno's wasn't as good, but it was underhyped. So I guess like mentally, I have a more positive experience with Geno's.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It wasn't John Henry's hammer situation going on where it's like, how is this? It has to be the absolute best thing ever, and it's just like, oh, it's good.
Yeah, but pizza tangent aside, but we get everything here on the podcast. We'll talk
Oh yeah,
pizza. Yeah,
no, yeah, we're
we'll talk,
good.
and we gotta, and I gotta have you back to talk figures because we could talk for another hour about just figure collecting, which is
I'm down. Set a time and we'll do it. I'm
okay.
cool. I will talk figures all day long. We'll do a video setup and I'll fucking bring stuff like, or I'll film in my figure room. We'll do it. I don't.
Well,
I'm game.
the first video podcast will be us sharing figures. I need to clean up my place because I mean I have all my figures lined up nicely, but I have like, you know,
The house I'm renting or the house I'm living at, I was renting, and no joke, me and my girlfriend said we don't want to move the figure room. She wanted to sell it, so we were just like, we'll just buy the house. We'll just buy the whole house because I don't want to move my figures again.
that
I've
that
done it
that
like 4 times.
that
Not
happened.
doing it again.
I live in my childhood home, and I remember like finally setting what was my old bedroom with like a bunch of figures and comic books on the wall and stuff like that. And I remember when I finally got a real job, my mom was not wanting to. She's just gonna sell the house, and I'm like, I'll just take the house
Yeah,
because I don't
just
want
give it
to.
to me.
Because I want to have complete control over what I can hang and do, and I have yeah. So yeah, but last question I wanted to ask you is, what are your goals? We're hopefully, knock on wood, getting back to normal, getting back to more independent shows running. Hopefully, I didn't just jinx everything, but what are your goals for the next couple of years as not just the wrestling world, but the whole world starts to transition back to normal?
Um, my goal just in general is just be a better person every day. That's like the number one. Wrestling wise, is to have good matches. I'm a very simple with my goals because like if you make them too, I never thought I'd wrestle. Like that was never. It was always something I thought of, but it was never something I thought would happen. Because like not an athletic kid, never was. Like everything I did was anti like
I forgot to actually ask you. Did you do any sports growing up?
until I was in 5th grade and my mom realized I couldn't play baseball and she said, "Why do I make you do this?" Um, and then I was like a singer. Like I did choir and band. I did drama in high school. Like I was almost as anti wrestling like athletic as you could get. I just really found a knack at how to fall properly.
Did the drama
Of
club help you in your like? Does that kind of do you
oh
ever go
yeah,
back to that when you're doing like wrestling performance? That experience in a drama club.
yeah. I mean, because I would do plays and stuff like that. So you do a play in front of like 300 people. It's a lot of the same thing as doing a wrestling show. The only difference is you're telling the story with your body and not your mouth. It goes back to the commentating thing. Um, and like I am a classically trained singer, and that goes into wrestling way more than you'd expect.
How so?
Um,
How so?
you just kind of I got in. I went to Southeast, and it's an opera school mainly. What their voice, at least back then, they really liked taking opera home, and my voice just didn't lend itself to that style. So I would just get beaten over the coals all the time in my voice lessons about how like everybody around me is better. So you kind of get like, you get that performance aspect of there's no such thing as a perfect performance. There's no such thing as a da-da-da. So like I don't get hung up on having a bad match as much as some people do, because I've had bad performances since I was in fourth grade.
Right.
Um, I'm never going to get that performance back. So I can dwell on it and really let it ruin my night, or I can just be like, all right, just fix it for next show. Um, I have that mentality about things. Of now, granted, don't if you buy a ticket and Dalton Anthony's on the card, I'm going to promise I'm going to give you the best match that I can. And if it's not good, I'm going to be upset at myself, but I'm not going to browbeat myself for 4 months over a match after I've wrestled 8 more times. Um, and vice versa. If I have a good match, I don't rest on my laurels. I just beat Jay Spade. I'm going in to try to beat Dexter Roswell, and I'm going to try to outdo the match that I just had. But it's because what have I done for the crowd lately? Well, nothing. I didn't wrestle this show, so I have to show them a good show. That performance background has kind of gotten where my headspace is with wrestling, of just like, it's a performance, you know what to do, go do it to the best of your abilities. That music background really helped me with it, especially the amount of performing I did up until I was like 24 in college. I was doing performances all the time. Like twice a month I'd be doing like music shows and choir performances and stuff like that. And we were always told to sing at the best of your ability, but know that perfect is something that you'll never attain. It really helped my mindset when it came to wrestling, because I kind of go into it the same thing: do the best you can, but perfect is never going to happen. Even like the best wrestling matches of all time are not perfect. About to say Lesnar concussed himself with Angle and almost broke his neck. That is the most perfect wrestling match you can give me is WrestleMania 19, those two, and somebody almost died. So like that's my standard of like, well, I mean, I'm never gonna get there, but like I'm gonna try to give a good show. But yeah, no, getting back to it, like this was never something that was in the cards for me. I was gonna be a teacher until I was 55, retire, and then enjoy my life. Wrestling was never supposed to be a part of it. I'm incredibly grateful that I get the opportunity to do it. So I don't have like lofty championship goals. It would be cool, but it's not my focus. My focus is in entertaining people. If I get to entertain people and have a belt around my waist, that's even cooler. I am one of the longest reigning champs at Stride. Me and Jay have held the belts for almost a year and a half. I don't think there's a single title reign that's lasted as long, except for Zoe Moore in the women's title, who she got the belt the same night we got ours. So like, I have a lot of cool accolades. The Stride building that everybody talks about, I wrestled the first match in front of people. Like I've gotten a lot of really cool moments out of wrestling, and it was me and Jay, and that was in 2018. So that's another reason why that match meant so much to me a couple weeks ago, because I know what a Jay Dalton Anthony match looks like because we've done it. We took enough time to not do it again to see what a better version of that would be. So I'm very grateful for all the cool accolades and achievements and cool things I've gotten to do, that I'm not greedy with my goals. I just want to go out, and I want people, when they hear Dalton Anthony's on a match, they know that they are going to be thoroughly sports entertained.
Awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for doing this episode, and really appreciate you taking out. You told me what all the stuff that you're working on right now outside of wrestling, so I really appreciate you taking time out of that schedule to talk to me about your career, and we'll definitely be talking about figures sometime in the very near future. But
Yeah.
do you have social media for anybody who maybe would want to check you out to follow you? And do you know where they can see some of your matches if they haven't seen a Dalton Anthony match before?
If you haven't seen a Dalton Anthony match, go to Stride's YouTube page. I'm on most of the shows in the last 2 years. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 shows because I had a couple of classes get COVID almost all at the same time, and I just decided that it wasn't a smart choice for me to go wrestle at that point. So like there's like maybe 1 show that I'm not on at the Stride side. So check out that. CCW's on Fight TV. If you go on the Cape Championship YouTube page, there's a couple of matches from my early career. A really brutal street fight that my girlfriend is still mad at me over 3 years later. And so check out that YouTube page. If you want to see a current one, go to Fight TV. All of the pay-per-views that we do are between $12 and $15. I will say you get a lot of value in that $12 and $15. Because I don't know how much you pay for your ticket at the CCW, what was it called, anniversary. But the TV, you get everything the crowd got except for the live interaction of being there, and you get commentary with it from Asa Gray, and he's amazing. So Stride's YouTube page, Cape Championship Wrestling's YouTube page. Check out Cape Championship Wrestling on Fight. I'm wrestling in Carruthersville tomorrow at a barbecue festival. I'm pretty stoked. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I know I'll eat after my match because it's a barbecue festival. I'm probably going to blow my entire PO on that. And like, if you're listening, I don't care where you are. If you have local wrestling and you feel safe to go, or if they have a Fight TV deal, support them. It's the only way that we get the recognition that we get is if people are there and watching, or if you're. I try to put on a good show for the people that are watching on the Fight TV feed and the YouTube feed as well. So just support your local wrestling. It's the only way that any of us, if you want to see new stars in WWE, AEW, Impact, Ring of Honor, all those places, you have to support the local scene. It's the only way it happens. They can't keep pulling a bunch of college football players forever. You have to support us. It's the only way that, and like, you never know, you might see the next Marco Stunt or the next, Trey Baxter on NXT, if you will follow up with him at all.
Yeah, I know of Trey Baxter, yeah.
Yeah, that was Blake Christian on the independent scenes. I wrestled shows with. I've never wrestled him, but I've been on shows with him, and like, it's really cool getting to see people that I've worked shows with that I'm in awe of get these cool opportunities. And you only get that recognition if people go out and support you. So if you have local wrestling around you, go buy a ticket, buy a shirt. If you see me at a gimmick table, buy a loose action figure, because I'm out of shirts now, which is a cool, scary and cool problem all at the same time. Social media, if you type in Dalton Anthony on Facebook, I'm there, but it's going to be mainly cats and shitty memes. My Twitter is at PZ85DAnthony. My Instagram is, I'm checking all this in real time, I apologize.
Oh, that's fine.
Dalton_Anthony92. And then if you go to prowrestlingtees.com/DaltonAnthony, you can buy one of my shirts. I have a Wrestling Buddy shirt up. I have a Best Assistant Ever shirt, which I contend is the coolest independent wrestling shirt in my area. And then I have the Dodge, Duck, Dip, Dive, and Dalton shirt, which was a tired fever dream thought that I had in the car with Billy Hills on the way back from Arkansas, that I just kind of said it out loud, and I said, that's my next shirt. So I think I'm coming up with a new design soon. But yeah, hit up that Pro Wrestling Tees store. I think if you listen to it right away, summertime will get you 20% off. But yeah, that's all the places you can reach me and support.
And even if you missed the sale, still buy one anyway, because
yeah,
it's a cool shirt. But thank you, Dalton, for doing this, and thank you everyone for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, share, subscribe for more content, not just from the world of pro wrestling, but from the world of comic books, gaming, anime, and all things geek culture. Follow Dalton, but also follow me on social media: Facebook.com/AthleticGeekA9, Twitter @Athletic_GeekA9. Instagram @AthleticGeekA9, and if you'd like to help improve this channel financially, I am on Patreon, patreon.com/AthleticGeekA9. Check out Stride, check out Cape Championship Wrestling, and buy a t-shirt from Dalton Anthony. We'll see you next time.